Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of January 15th. The city's Human Relations Commission will celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tonight at 5:30 p.m. at the Pavilion at John Knox Village. The theme for this year's free community-wide event is Living the Dream. It starts with me, spreading hope, courage, and unity. Find more information on the city's website. The city will be hosting an in-person public meeting to discuss the design of both the Douglas Street Improvements Project and the Olive and Orchard Streets Improvements Project on January 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. in council chambers at City Hall. The meeting will be an open house style format with no formal presentation. Attendees can view project plans and exhibits and make comments. An online public meeting format will also be available January 18th through February 5th. City Council will meet for a joint session on Tuesday night with the Parks Board at 6 in council chambers in City Hall. You can quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. And stay weather aware this weekly summit. Do so by signing up for the city's free alert system, LS Aware. Receive emergency and non-emergency information by text, email, or phone, such as snow operations and updates. You choose how you want to be notified. Learn more on the city's website. And a reminder, all city facilities are closed today in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple. Quick.
It's Member Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plan, so I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge. I'm not a politician. I feel like I'm just an average person in Lee Summit. They have a football field set up. Inside these cones are their football fields. Our 2-car garage is we're gonna bring the driveway back through here, and it's gonna go right here. And then, so my family has chickens. When we first got chickens, my husband said, don't treat them as your pets, treat them as chickens, because we're gonna be eating the eggs, and I would like to use them for meat. So don't treat them as your pets. Well, we now have 6 chickens that I consider my pets, and I will not let him kill for meat. So we live downtown, and we love living downtown. These are my children. The first one's Lincoln, and Amira, and Sophia, and Caleb. This is a great neighborhood. Downtown is one big community, and all of the kids get together and they play basketball, and we like to walk to the farmer's market. Here, hold my hand. It's an easy walk, probably less than 10 minutes. The farmer's market has always been a very important part of my life and my family's life. As a matter of fact, when my daughter started kindergarten, I dropped her off and I was going shopping at the farmer's market right behind Lee Summit Elementary. And I was teary-eyed because she was my first and she was going off to kindergarten. And Terry, the butterfly lady, the one that's in the purple shirt, and she used to make little butterfly stickers for everyone, she gave me a big hug and was just so empathetic to the fact that my daughter had just started school. How are you guys doing? Doing well, how are you? Yeah, very good. A lot of the farmers there, they've watched my kids grow up. I love Lee Summit in general. I love that it still has a small town feel while embracing growth and the arts and diversity. And I feel like downtown specifically embodies that. My kids go to Lee Summit Elementary, and a lot of their teachers live downtown, and a lot of the business owners from downtown live downtown. So when we're out walking downtown, we see so many people we know. I lived in Africa until I was 5, and then we moved to the United States, and I've lived in Lee Summit since. Oh, a lot of my childhood, my mom was a single mom, and I feel like I was essentially raised by my community and being on council, and it's just such an important way to give back to the community that raised me.
I state your name.
I, Mia Pryor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
this day of April 2022. The election process was fun. I got to go door to door and talk to people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do, is talking to people and learning about people. I even had people inviting me into their house for dinner or inviting me back to their house to meet their spouse. And I knocked on a door, and the lady that answered the door was my kindergarten teacher. So it was a lot of fun. Is it on? Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Mia Pryor. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have one on, can you not? Okay. Maybe I went. I love being a council rep for District 1. I know everyone says this, but District 1 is by far, in my opinion, the best district. Raintree Lake, that's part of District 1. I love that community. Actually, my husband and I got married at the clubhouse in Raintree Lake. I really love all of South Lee Summit. I love the growth that they're going to be experiencing soon and that they've already experienced. I wanted to say that if you guys have a concern, please come tell us what your concern is, because we can only address and help with what we know. We're there to kind of bridge that gap between constituents in the city, and we're the voice of our constituents, and we can go to the city and voice what their concerns are, what their ideas are. So if you have a concern, definitely make us aware. So my big priorities are public safety. That's always one of my top priorities. I've always wanted to make sure that first responders were supported. I think that that's super important to me and to many in our city. But also I wanted to influence the growth in Lee Summit. I wanted to influence the type of businesses we get here and the type of activities there are to do for our families. If we're going to continue to grow downtown, how important it is to focus on people that already live here and the infrastructure we already have in place.
Our first presentation tonight is going to be Assistant City Manager Ryan Elam, who is going to talk about that very exciting Farmers Market Plaza.
But I want to show you the most recent rendering, fly-through video of that. That's really the best way to kind of get a good sense of what this will look like in the near future.
To see it developing into something as big as it's going to be across from City Hall is super exciting to me. I can't wait for it to get built and to start welcoming people into what the farmers market's going to be, but also everything else that goes along with that development.
Okay.
Dad, you want to hold it? Don't drop it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest.
I'm just an average person in Lee Summit that wanted to be a voice of many that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom that cares.
Is she not here? Oh, she's on Zoom. Okay, let's bring this meeting to order. I'm calling to, oh, no, I'm sorry. Would you all please rise for the invocation and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Heavenly Father, we come together to work in partnership and to exchange ideas that will foster growth in our community. Give us a spirit of teamwork as we share our thoughts. We ask that you might find the answers we seek, and we will help guide the process. Amen.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm calling to order the City of Lee Summit regular session. It's a joint session with the Parks Board, regular session number 61. May I get a roll call, please? Crystal, you might have to come up and do a roll call.
Councilmember Shields?
Present.
Councilmember Felker?
Here.
Councilmember Pryor?
Here.
Pro Tem Lopez?
Here.
Councilmember DeMoro?
Here.
Councilmember Edson?
Here.
Mayor Baird? Councilmember Lovell, there you are.
Here.
And I'm here, too. And would you do the Park Board, too? Thanks.
President Bivens?
Here.
Vice President, sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Is it Hooser? Hooser? Board Member Shepherd?
Here.
Board Member Allenbach? Board Member Crawford?
Here.
Board Member Ellis?
Here.
Board Member Fields?
Not here.
Board Member Moorhead?
Here.
Here.
All right, fantastic. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion from a council member?
Mayor,
Yes,
I
council
motion
member.
to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember
Second.
Morrow has motion to approve the agenda. Seconded by Councilmember Shields. Can I get a roll call vote, please? Yeah, where do you think you're going?
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Edson? Aye. Councilmember DeMoro?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields?
Aye.
Mayor Baird?
Aye. See, we have these cool little devices up there. We don't have to do this typically. Next is going to be the approval of the consent agenda. Member Shields.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Shields to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? None. Please, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lovell?
Aye.
Councilmember Felker?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryor?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Edson? Aye. Councilmember DeMoro?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields?
Aye.
Mayor Baird's aye.
Oh, Mayor Baird, sorry.
And
Out of
then
practice.
this would be council roundtable. I think we're good now. Thanks. Council roundtable. So President Bivens, my counterpart, sir.
Yes, sir.
We use this time to talk about things going on in the community, items of general interest, things that we just want to make sure that everybody's aware about. So does anybody have anything that they would like to hear? Yes, Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you to, no? I feel like I am. Okay. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the crews, fire, police, public works, everyone that's out right now on our streets. I know there were water main breaks and they were out in the cold having to dig, and that to me just does not sound like fun. So, and then I know there's been a couple fires, which, yeah. So just thank you to all of them. And
Yes, thank you. Any board members as well, you're welcome to going on in the parks this week. Cold outside. Pickleball inside.
Mr. Mayor, the only comment is thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having us tonight. Think about, at least I get some ideas. I like your real neat name tags, your badges up there. So I was just telling our treasurer here, Sam, that we can't afford it, but we're going to work on that too. So thank you for having us. Thank you.
No, thanks for being here. Councilmember Lovell and I'll save it for council comments, but just so you know, we went down to Jeff City today, up, down, cross. It'd be across to Jeff City today, and we testified in that public hearing on the landfill, and it was pretty well attended for being a very cold, packed house, and lots of good questions. Tyler's wife was there representing Summit Point Elementary, and she did a phenomenal job. She was amazing. So really well, and we'll see how it goes from there. So that'll take us to public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening, Mr. Dunning or Mr. Head?
Not aware of any, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'll take us into presentations. And yes, Mr. Bivens said he appreciates being able to have this time. So do we. We love this opportunity to collaborate, share ideas, work together with regard to possibly can. We're sister organizations, charters, but we share the same brand. And so, closely with President Bivens the last couple of years. One-to-one with Mark Dunning and Joe Snook, who are over here. They're counterparts, and we're counterparts as we're the chairs of our councils. And so district, we also do it with the so we wanted to get caught up on park updates because we don't really have a night where you get to do that, right, Mr. Snook? So this would be one of the first items on here. Do you want to add anything to what I just said? I'm kind of ad-libbing this.
Well, I will as well, Mayor. First of all, thank you for last week. Person in the room listening and being for your time when you spend quite phenomenal. I mean, I'm president because a lot of conversations with our administration. Park here 35 years ago, that was Lee Summit. Much to my mother's chagrin, but so much for this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll talk about during the strategic planning as well as other conversations with community stakeholders, citizens, businesses, what's most important to our citizens, and it's always public safety and parks and schools. Those are the three that always are at the top of the list. I don't know what order. I know they're all at the very top. So we're excited to hear some updates. So we have someone teed up, I believe. Mr. Casey's here. So are you leading the way on this?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I am.
Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, President Bivens, and our Park Board. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Steve Casey. I'm the Superintendent of Park Planning and Construction for Lee Summit Parks and Recreation. I'd like to spend a little time this evening going back, kind of reflecting back on some of our recent projects, and then kind of look ahead. What I'd like to present are projects that either obviously we've completed or in progress, everything that is currently in our capital improvement plan and is budgeted. I know we've had some discussions about some projects into the future. I know the landfill and redevelopment of that's currently an unfunded project, but it's still on our radar screen, and so I won't talk specifically about that tonight, but that is definitely in our project queue. So if I could just start out kind of going back, and we might have touched on this back when we were here, I think about 14 months ago, we made a presentation to a joint Park Board City Council meeting related to our master plan update and our strategic plan. This was an opportunity for us to kind of piggyback on the work that was done citywide with the comp plan and the Ignite study. It was a very successful process for us because we were able to engage our citizens. We went through an extensive process where we had some surveys that went out. We had, I think, about 1,200 responses that we had communicated either through SurveyMonkey or some means to communicate with our community, and took that feedback, formed a task force, and then we worked with them specifically. We also worked internally with city staff and some of our community partners, and it was a successful process because it enabled us to kind of reinforce some of our strategies, long-term and short-term, but also hear from our community and things that we may not have been touching on. I think what we found out is we continue some of our priorities are trails, park amenities, things like shade and restrooms obviously are important, but also the preservation of open space as a community continues to grow. I think that we heard loud and clear from our community that we need to put mechanisms in place to set aside future park land as a community continues to grow over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So, and that report is available online. It's available for review. And so wanted to touch on that as a project that we've completed. I want to talk a little bit about some of our neighborhood parks, two of them specifically that we've recently completed. Veely Park in District 3, which is up north off Anderson Drive. It was a neighborhood park redevelopment. Want to highlight this one because I think it represents what our department is capable of, and that we use a lot of in-house resources, which provides a lot of value back to our community. We have in-house design, planning, and construction. We work together to turnkey a lot of these projects, particularly the smaller neighborhood park projects. And so this one I wanted to highlight because it represents, I think, some of our good work that we do, but also the value we give back to the community because we can capture some of that in-house, and in some cases can provide as much as 20% more value to the park. That's more park improvements, that's more playgrounds, that's more trails. And so I wanted to touch on that one in particular. Pleasant Lee Park in District 1 recently completed. We dedicated that park back in February of last year. Went through an extensive renovation. I want to highlight this one because we were able to leverage our resources, and we received a $250,000 grant for park improvements. And so while our community supports us, we do look for funding mechanisms that are outside of our standard funding mechanisms. And so we do leverage and look for opportunities for funding beyond just our resources within the city. Next slide is a project that we are undertaking that will help in a lot of areas. This is a 5-year program that we're implementing to replace all of our playgrounds. We have 24 playgrounds that are going to be undergoing renovation, where we're replacing playground mulch with turf. What that's helping us do is reduce maintenance that's involved with loose fill, playground surfacing, and other surfacing that we do a lot of maintenance on, but it also improves accessibility, creates opportunities for ADA access and mobility around the playgrounds. This past year, in the fall of 2023, we completed 4 parks with this turf replacement program. I would like to mention too, with in this particular instance, we are using local Lee Summit business to do this work and turnkey it for us. So we've got a good working relationship with them. We bid this out. They were the low bidder. They were very competitive. But this is an extensive project that we'll be undertaking over the next 5 years. Talked about pickleball. This is obviously continues to be a growing sport, and we are trying to stay on top of that in terms of what we provide our community. District 2, Osage Trails Park. Back last winter, we installed 2 outdoor courts. This is kind of some before and after pictures of that renovation. We worked with a company out of Wichita to build these courts, and they've been very popular. I'd like to just touch briefly on some of the current capital projects that we've got underway. Park West and Mouse Creek Trail, this is in our CIP. This is an instance where we were able to announce last week that we received a $250,000 recreation trails grant to help leverage some of the funding with this project. This is a 3-phase project that we are rolling out. The first phase of it will be the trail development from Pryor Road to Sampson Road. We currently have trail in the upper right-hand corner. You can kind of see, kind of get a perspective of that, the scope of the project going from Pryor to Sampson Road. And then the 2 subsequent phases are in the bottom right-hand corner. We worked with a consultant to develop a master plan for a Park West property, which we purchased about 15 years ago. It is undeveloped, but we are looking to move forward on this over the next few years. One component, the second phase of this will be neighborhood park development on the east side of the Park West plan, which connects into the Eagle Creek subdivision. So we'll be working on that over the next couple of years. And then an unfunded portion of the project is to do a community park development on the west side of. Again, I mentioned the ongoing turf replacement program. For FY25, we'll be doing Osage Trails, Lee McKeegan South, Hartman, and Lowenstein. Those are some of our busier park playgrounds, so we wanted to prioritize those locations. A couple of projects that I wanted to highlight too that are a little smaller scale, but are very important to our neighbors and neighborhoods. Can't undervalue and really tell you how important even the small neighborhood parks are to our community. Lower Banner is an example of one. In some disrepair, we wanted to make this a priority project with some before and after pictures of the playground and what we've been able to do. So we've been working on that project in-house over the last couple months. That's District 4, Lower Banner, and then Williams Grant Park in District 1, kind of in our downtown area. We'll make some nice improvements to the downtown, the residents that live in the downtown area. In both instances of these parks too, we felt it was really important to connect with our neighbors. So we had, we did something kind of interesting in sort of reaching out to hear feedback on what the community and what the neighbors would like to see. On 2 separate Saturdays on both these projects, we had donuts and coffee in the park, and we invited the neighbors to come in and just give us some feedback. Joe and I helped kind of facilitate that process, and so it was very helpful. It was very productive. They certainly were not reluctant to give us their opinions on what they'd like to see. So that was very valuable for us and typical of how we handle those processes, particularly at the neighborhood level. It's important for us to partner and work and be transparent and communicate with our residents and our neighborhoods. 2 other parks that will be undergoing renovation here this spring: Woods Playground in Wadsworth, District 1, District 4. Again, kind of in our central downtown core. Smaller, these are 2 of our smaller playground parks, but they will also be going through renovations. What we did in terms of soliciting input on this is we just put some signage out in the parks, and then we did a very focused social media communication with the residents in both of those parks. Did a short survey and a questionnaire and got feedback, and I think reflects on the right-hand side, you can see both the existing playgrounds and the new playgrounds that'll be going in. So both these, we'll be making four park sites over a course of 12 months. We'll be making pretty significant improvements. I touched on the pickleball. This is on our radar screen. Two things I'd mention with the pickleball and the field house, which I'll mention here in a minute, is I would equate both of these projects while we're working on, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I would equate it to the duck on the water. On the surface, it doesn't really look like there's much going on, but under the water, there's a lot of activity. We're working, we're looking at sites, we're communicating with potential partners. There's a lot going on there. It's just doesn't appear like there maybe is a lot of movement, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with both the pickleball complex and the field house. And I know we have spent a lot of time looking at comparable facilities in the Midwest and locally to try to determine what is our best approach to this. So when we move forward with a site location and design, we feel like we've got a good program in place and that it will be responsive to what the community needs. Project forward. So with that, I would entertain any questions.
Questions? Going on in your
Steve,
district?
I have one. At enough meetings, but sometimes I tend to forget after a board meeting. The project to eventually go from mulch surfaces to a more desirable surface of turf. What is the approximate price tag or cost on that?
We had originally started as sort of a placeholder for the budget that we thought it was going to be in the area through the bid process and working with, again, a local, at least some local contractor that's been able to turnkey essentially both the manufacturing of the materials, the storage, the delivery of the materials, the installation. I think it came in at about 2.3 million. So represents an example of finding a good partner in the project that we went through a process, a selection process, where they qualified their work. They do a lot of turf, not just playgrounds, but baseball, football fields throughout the Midwest, throughout the country. So they had a very good reputation. They're local, like I said, they're a local company. And I think that was a value back to the project, because if we needed to pick up the phone and had an issue with something that, you know, so that was a significant, it came in considerably under the set aside. And what I'd also mention about that too is that we're going to be doing this in the off season, so it's not going to be as disruptive to our community in the busy times of year, when in the summer, the early fall, late spring, when we see the bulk of the activity in our parks. We're primarily doing this between the months of October and March. So over the next 5 years, we'll be
mentioned shade, something very important to us, particularly here in the Midwest. We're out at the wave pool. That's a constant turn. Just off the top of your head, what other playgrounds around the city do have shade structures, or we're going to have?
I think shade will be part of our, not that it wasn't part of the mainstream sort of consciousness of how we look at renovation of parks, but I think it's certainly gaining some priority. So you'll see more of our park redevelopment and playground redevelopment projects.
Some of these things have to come back to memory, but great pretty things are parks, new playground equipment. Those things are important, but those are things that are talk to the public about things that we take for granted, and they should as well. Cost. And
Could I just touch on one other project? You mentioned pretty. This one is not so pretty. And I forgot to, one more slide in here because I was ending on a couple of upcoming projects is a dredge study that we are undertaking out at Legacy Lake. And Legacy is obviously our crown jewel park. Within that park is a 28-acre lake that was constructed as part of the park and the design of Blackwell Parkway. It is integral to the park in terms of stormwater management. It is also the source of irrigation for all of the sports fields out there, which saves us millions of dollars over extensive period of time, saves us annual water cost. Or what we're looking at out there is that this is outside of our city water service, and so it's District 13 water that we would have to irrigate the sports fields with, but instead we pump it directly out of this lake. Now, the lake has been there for 25 years. It is through natural progression, through construction upstream, portions of it have silted in as much as possibly we're trying to estimate, get a real handle on right now, but is potentially as much as we've lost 60% of the capacity of that lake in the last 25 years. So we've undertaken an engineering study to determine the best approach for essentially digging out the lake and increasing the capacity back to its original capacity. But not just water for irrigation, it's an environmental piece, it's wildlife habitat, it's fire suppression for the buildings out in the park, specifically Lovell Community Center. So it is a multifunctional body of water out there that really needs to be sustainable. And over the past 2 or 3, 4 years, we've been pushing the envelope a little bit on our ability, particularly with some of the recent droughts. We've been pushing our ability to irrigate out of that lake and keep our sports fields, some of our best the sports fields, some of the best in the Midwest. So we want to ensure that. It will be a significant undertaking. It will not be pretty. It will be probably over several months, but we are trying to determine the best way and the least impactful way that we can do that. So we are working through that process right now, presenting some more information to our park board next week. Exactly why we're doing it and what our strategies are for. Apologize, I missed that last slide, but that was the
I've got one quick question, or 2 parts actually. What if you know the prospective begin construction?
I can't give you any definitive, really. There's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. It could break very quickly, or it could be a little more protracted process. I think the pickleball may be sooner than the field house, or they may come at the same time. Put a timeline on it. And now I would say once we get a go-ahead, I think that process from a design, a planning, construction standpoint, I think we're probably looking at anywhere from 24 to 36 months on a field house. A pickleball court complex would be a shorter construction window and planning window, probably something in the neighborhood of. But that start date is still determined.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, speaking of Legacy Lake, I was just wondering, what is
I think this is a unique watershed with Legacy Lake, and that it draws from a lot of different directions. It's a very big watershed. So that is the good and the bad. One, that we're able to draw a lot of stormwater runoff for irrigation and containment within that lake, but it also creates a lot of erosion issues. And so I think contributing to that has been construction upstream, subdivisions, but also just natural overland flow through creeks and farmland. And farmland is even a contributing factor to sedimentation and siltation. So that's, I don't want to pin it on one thing. I think it's just, we're at that point now where there's been enough. When we built Legacy Park, there wasn't really anything out there. And now you're seeing a lot of subdivisions. Positively, I would say that that development, I think, has probably reached 90% of its capacity. Again, I'm ballparking it, but I think we don't anticipate seeing much more development within that watershed. But this is our one opportunity, I think, to get in there to its original.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Casey? All right, very good. Mr. Snook, you want to add something? Oh, you came up for the next item. Okay, very good. Well, we love that you're updating our parks, that's for sure. We're excited about that. What is next? Oh, the park impact fee.
Park impact fee. So just thought we'd do a quick update on that. I know Steve kind of alluded to the Park West project down off of Sampson Road. I know at the CEDC meeting last week, we presented that as one of our unfunded projects, about $3.5 million. So through the master plan process and through our community input, Steve mentioned that one of the priorities was to make sure we are setting aside parkland for future growth in this community, and making sure that we ensure some kind of funding mechanism to help with that process. The park board over probably 18 months have looked at two options, really: land dedication ordinance and a park impact fee. And after a lot of discussion and assistance from the legal department and questions and more research and more questions, the park board has determined that they thought the park impact fee would be the best approach, gives us the most flexibility, because it allows us to have funds to buy land as well as funds to develop land. Where a land dedication ordinance, you would be requiring a developer to dedicate land, but you would not have any money to develop that land. So last week we came to the CEDC and had a really good meeting. It was, I think it was a bit lengthy, and we had a lot of great questions and a lot of good dialogue. I think they gave us some good direction to go back. I think the key points from my perspective that I heard was take another look at the fee. There were two fees that were proposed. One was a $1,200 fee for residential living units, and then a 20 cents per square foot fee for non-residential development. So the direction that I heard was, could we go back and take a look at the fees, specifically the residential fee of $1,200, and could there be an adjustment to that? And then there could be a potential adjustment to the commercial or the non-residential fee, and maybe that could even be an adjustment upwards as opposed to downwards. There was also a suggestion to maybe look at a tiered approach based upon the type of residential development. So staff has been working on that over the past week. We've run some scenarios and we'll take a look at it. We'll be presenting next week to the park board our proposals or some options, and then get their feedback and hopefully get direction from them. And with their direction, we'll bring it back hopefully to the CEDC in February. So that's kind of the quick synopsis of the meeting last week. I know that we have the members of the CEDC here that if they'd like to provide some other insight, that would be welcomed, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Ritson.
Thank you, Mayor. I take issue with the word lengthy. I'm going to say we were thorough.
Well, I don't mean that derogatory towards you. I mean that derogatory towards me, because it was a lengthy presentation that I brought to the table. So for that, I apologize.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and he did a great job summing up the direction that the committee gave him. And several of the committee members, me included, wanted to see some options on that per door impact fee, because we've been working really hard for the past year or so on affordable living. And so we didn't want to say, one of the things we hear from developers is reduce some of the fees that the city requires us to pay. So we didn't want to go, hey, give us affordable living, and oh, by the way, here's another fee. So that was part of the reasoning we wanted to see more fee on residential, and maybe take it up more on the commercial side. And if anybody else on the committee would like to talk.
Pilger, yeah.
Mayor, sure. Just and Mr. Snook, you did this when you presented to us, and I'm sure you will when you come back to us, and certainly you're doing this. The reason helpful, needful for the future. What opportunities might we miss if we don't? I think is a very important bodies as well as the general public and developers. Like, it's benefit all of us. So observation. You did that well with our presentation. I think we talked a little bit about it. Just kind of bringing back why would we do it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You. Could have teed up some softball questions to get them going tonight. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Team.
Yeah, and if we can call on Ryan Elam too, he's been doing a lot of heavy lifting on the project too. That'd be great.
I don't have the visuals. So we were just going to give you some updates on the downtown farmers market and Market Plaza, but in particular that Market Plaza looks like a park. Tried to do something. Ryan, you have to. What kind of space we wanted it. Yes, we want it to be active and busy. We want the farmers market to be utilized, but we want it to be programmed 7 days a week, all year long. But we also wanted it to be the type of place where you could hang out, that families would want to just sit. And so, pedestrian road, not a vehicle. So in doing that, a lot of thought and time and care has gone into how do you create a welcoming environment? That space look like, feel like? How do you invite or draw them down the road?
I am Ryan Elam, Assistant City Manager. I'm pulling the visuals up, and as soon as I put this in there.
Oh, you're fine.
Challenges, but it'll be just
one
one
second.
second.
My password tonight. So the pedestrian part of this, it's going to include a playground. You'll see in the visuals, wicket garden, which is the wickets. Entire project. I'd start on the north side, then finish on the. Kind of remind them where everything is, because council sees this, has seen this conceptual drawing a million times, so we know where everything is, but the park board doesn't get to see it all the time, so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you very much. So we'll start here on 2nd Street, and as you enter from 2nd Street, the new entrance, if you will, to the Market Plaza will be have some new landscaping put in there, and that'll be kind of modified. And the entrance to the garage will remain open, and then you really start noticing a bunch of changes when you get to here. Obviously, right now, there's no longer, in this plan, no longer a Green Street going through, and you're kind of immediately into this public space through here. This area here is meant to be a kind of a playground, a small playground gathering area for families and things. Utilizing the outdoor performance area and the farmers market building itself as you go through here. Now, the outdoor performance area, it's a large canopy structure that's we're partnering with a company called Structure Flex, and they're doing design and fabrication of that. And that whole area will be covered, and underneath that area will be a green, we haven't really quite named it yet. A lot of these features are still in the naming process, but I've been referring to it as the lawn type of area, and really it's just going to be a great gathering place for everybody to come and hang out, as well as the farmers market building here. It's a little over 17,000 square feet. There's restrooms in the building located here, as well as here. There's a kind of a catering kitchen type place, as well as a little lobby area. But the main bulk of the space is all open space for the farmers market for the vendors. There will be space for 50 vendors to be inside. And then there's a number of garage doors located along the wall here that will all open up. And then this area back here will also have garage doors that can open up, so it can become a true indoor-outdoor space. I will say that this rendering here is slightly out of date. We have been working through the design process to acquire this shed, and there will actually be additional parking along this area for use by vendors and things like that, and this road will be slightly shifted over. As you work your way south through here, and we'll have some renderings to show in a lot of opportunities for various art pieces and various community interaction spaces. Each one of these spaces are kind of sized to be able to program in a number of different ways. Everything from, a large type of programming event to your smaller type of programming events and programming spaces up through here, as well as through the Wickets Garden in this area here. This area is really kind of a terraced seating area that you could have small performances in, as well as a lot of just landscaped, nice area. One of the other kind of things that we've been doing throughout this whole process is really focusing on flexibility and adaptability of the space. So you won't see a lot of fixed furniture. You won't see a lot of fixed items in there. It's more about how can it be inviting and how can those items be moved around to really be utilized in a number of different ways. There's another location right here for another very iconic art piece that we're looking to procure. So a lot of this is how can we make this a really unique outdoor gathering space that's really for the community as a whole. Now, this is a big public-private partnership, so you'll see the boutique hotel with first floor retail on this area here. We have a restaurant, and this has been envisioned to have some sort of a rooftop element since day one on that. So we don't have users yet, but we are working with Lane 4 as our master developer partner on this, and then they are showing a multifamily piece as well. All of these components really have to work together in order for this project to really work overall. So there's a lot of coordination going through with that. Now, let's to a couple other. This just shows some of the different areas and colored areas here with our streetscape pavilion, the outdoor performance venue, and the farmer's market. Those are the main public components there, and then the other private components. And then gives you a little bit of a better sense of the area from with a little bit more 3 dimensions. We have a number of videos and renderings available on the website, as well as more detailed descriptions about what each one of these project elements are on that website. Be happy to show the video again. I know the city council's probably seen that video a few less times than I have, but not that many. So you can see, this really kind of gives you an idea of what this is going to look like from City Hall, and just the kind of the attention that is being paid to how these different elements fit together. Be happy to show additional images or answer questions or talk
Real
about
quick, go through the 11 slides that you had in the packet, the renderings. So these will show you different angles. That's underneath the canopy there. That would be where you would have your events. You could have the outdoor portion of the farmer's market. You could also have concerts out there. See just to the left there the garage doors that go into the farmer's market. There we go. There's the first slide. So you can see the farmer's market's directly ahead with the canopy, and then you see the building. Next one, you can see the wicket garden there. That is, people could hang out. You could have maybe some music there, a small session of music. Lots of art and colors throughout. But you can see a lot of trees. Talk about shade, Mr. Bibbins. We got some shade for you. We can change out those colors on those wicket garden, on the wickets. Slide. I love this next photo. One more. So that'd be looking back towards City Hall from 3rd and Green. And that's what I mean by inviting, just welcoming you to walk down the street. Got to go down and see what's at the end of that wicket garden to see that farmer's market. And a lot of work went into this. This is quite a bit of time. If you go to the next slide, this would be underneath the wicket garden. Lighting. Right behind you, if you were standing at that exact location, we really want to put something special right behind you at sculpture or some type of art piece. Would be looking straight across at the front of the farmer's market, and you can see we got lots of art. Played with the facade there so that we can bring color into it. But this would be the entry. You can kind of see it says market there where the people are. Just a great environment. So keep going, sir.
Bit of a lag every time I hit the next slide. That's why.
Next one's the playground. You can see it on the left. Playground on the left. So, and some shade there. We got some shade in inner. Yeah. What do you think on the surface? What's that going to be? Do you think?
I don't have the exact spec memorized right now, but it is a soft playground type surface. I think it's actually been coordinated. The spec's been coordinated with Parks and Rec to make sure that
underneath
we're putting the right stuff.
Underneath the
not mulch, I know that.
Underneath the market, though, is that you think that'll be turf, right?
Yes, that will
very
be
similar to the parks.
Yeah, yeah. Underneath here, that'll be an artificial turf.
Go on, please. Again, the front of the market is the next slide, and you can see a canopy there where the turf is. All of those flower pots and such, they'll be mobile. We can move them around. We can design it. obstacle course, something. Go ahead, sir. So then you're looking, you're underneath the canopy almost, looking at the garage doors that would come up during the, so this would be, we're gonna, when we designed the farmer's market, we designed it to be round, so it will be heated. Kept it simple on the inside, did a little bit less finish, less office finish, save money. Saw this one, this is under the canopy. Kind of hard to believe, but the construction's underway across the street, if you haven't noticed. I know it gets dark early, but you should. What is happening, because we're working on the infrastructure, and I'll let Mr. Pretty big storm sewer issue that we're working on. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, that is correct. We are. Just a few really kind of quick recent accomplishments that we've had. Obviously the construction commencement is a really big deal for the project overall, really with the demolition. A lot of the main construction, if you look across the demolition, it looks like a giant hole in the ground right now. That's because it is. There, if you go to the corner of Wilson and Greenridge, Eastridge, yes, Wilson and Eastridge, that area is shut down right now, and you'll notice a number of large concrete boxes out there. That's because that's the storm sewer that goes from that outlet, that end section goes all the way through. It's going to have to cut across a couple of parking lots, down 2nd Street, cut underneath that grass area that we've got shown for the farmer's market canopy to replace the existing storm sewer system that's underneath there. If you recall, we've had a few storm sewer challenges in the downtown area. This is meant to address those issues. It's a long time needed public improvement that is being made possible through this project here. But that is really the first thing that has to be done. Is a lot of the utilities have to be upsized, they have to be relocated, and that takes a little bit of time. Another really big recent accomplishment has been the acquisition of the AT&T property. We've got the west lot. We're working diligently with AT&T and their attorneys on acquiring some additional property, particularly that shed area, in order to make behind the farmer's market much more usable and make that a fully public area through there. I've got a couple of acronyms on here. We got GMP2, that's our guaranteed max price 2, out to bid. And what we ended up doing in order to make sure that we can meet the schedule was we had an early, call it an early civil package. That's a lot of your underground work, that big storm sewer that I mentioned in particular. This next package is really the bulk of the farmer's market and the site development work associated with the project. So that's out to bid right now, and we are looking to get pricing back on that here this week to really start finalizing that. We have our final development plan and our building permit. It's been reviewed, and they are very close to being able to be issued. So those upcoming milestones, these got some actual dates associated with them. So I mentioned GMP2. GMP3 is another package. That's going to be 3rd Street and Johnson improvements. So that's roadway improvements there. But that'll go out to bidders at the end of this month. While we're hoping to bring back the GMP2 to City Council, looking to have the building permit on Valentine's Day. And then 2nd Street and Green Street, they'll have some closures coming up. I just have March there as a tentative timeline with that. We're actually working through a lot of coordination right now to ensure that we don't completely gridlock downtown when we have some road closures going on. So there's a lot of moving parts on that. When we close one section of 2nd Street, we want to minimize the amount of time that's down. We want to make sure that there's proper detour routes. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done on 3rd and Green as well. And so there's a bit of a timing challenge that is being worked through right now. And all of that really works its way to having a building pad on June 4th of this year with substantial completion has now been pushed out a little bit due to some of the conflicts and challenges that we're kind of running into immediately, looking at June of 25. Now, contractors doing everything they can in order to expedite that as we continue to work forward.
Sir, you know, when we start working on this, it's been a long time coming, and it's a reinvestment into the you know, we've always talked from the council's perspective of building upon the greatness of the downtown. We wanted to add to the greatness of the downtown. We wanted to expand the, you know, wonderful feeling that you get downtown, and that's what we've done with this. That's the path we're headed down. We're making that footprint bigger, drawing you down another street. You know, just it's kind of been a theme that I've kind of talked to council with, is we always want to be continuously improving. And so, and that's what you were talking about tonight. The park updates that you gave is that the parks are continuously improving. And sometimes you have the maintenance issues, and you've got to worth it once you make the reinvestment. That's what we've done here. This was a pretty big project, obviously, and we've put a lot of heart and soul into it. And staff has killed themselves, and council's been patient, but yet pushing. And you know, you're working on legacy, and you're dredging it. And while you're doing that, we just encourage you to think about, is there a way we can make it better after it's also done? Add some, because like Mr. Casey said, that's our crown jewel. I think you got a few crown jewels from Lowenstein to more, but Hartman. But just if you can just continuously improve and build upon the greatness of our parks, that's all we ask, and we'll try to do our part on our end to be part of it and support you. So, Mr. Dunning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Since we have this joint meeting with the Parks Board, I thought it'd be helpful to go a quick trip down memory lane and mention, this lawn covered space is that performing arts space and festival space that in 2013 the voters, said yes, we need something like that downtown. So I wanted to make sure, we're not trying to compete with the amphitheater. This was all came from a cultural facilities master planning effort to supplement, to play off of each other. So just wanted to mention that 2013 bond issue is what brought forth the amphitheater. And you mentioned the council's being patient as we get here. The community's been patient, with us getting this downtown performance and festival space brought together, but hopefully this will be just another crown jewel for this community. So I just wanted to mention that, kind of plant that seed again, that this was all planned, and while this may look like it could compete with the amphitheater, they're programmed very much differently. So that's the goal there.
Mr. Dunning, who will be in charge of the programming for that?
That's a great question. So the way it's set up is that the farmers market, we're partnered with the Downtown Community Improvement District, They're bringing resources to bear to partner with us on that facility. So think of the downtown Main Street organization, the farmers market specifically, to be somewhat of that master tenant, if you will, so that they maximize their time in that space. But when they're not there, we want other types of programming taking place in there. So I mentioned that to bring forward that the Community Improvement District and Downtown Main Street will be part of that programming effort. But to get directly to responding to your question, there's a manager entity that would be facilitating, scheduling, programming for the market space, for the performing and festival space, for a lot of the spaces that Ryan went through on bringing programs forward. Parks can certainly play in that area too, with some of those. So that's a massive amount of coordination. So when we envision this project, there's a manager entity that would be in place to coordinate that. I think of the synergies with the private spaces too. I could certainly see a boutique hotel wanting to use the farmers market space for some types of events and things. So coordination with the private sector would need to occur as well.
Say manager entity, what, is that someone within the city? Is that an external entity, or what is that?
You want to take it, Ryan? You want me to keep going?
I can jump in whenever
Okay.
you want me to.
To be determined, right? We intentionally brought on, when we started designing this space, it was a firm called BRV, Biederman Redevelopment Ventures. And they take spaces like this and they bring to bear their programming experience for this and their managerial experience with this. So there wasn't a commitment for them to be that long-term manager, but they helped us envision the space. The thinking there was, don't just build the space and then step back and say, how are we going to program it? Think of what programs you want to bring to bear and then design your space to fit that. And so that's the approach that was taken. So it's yet to be determined whether it's going to be an entity like BRV or some other entity, but we've set up a pretty complex framework through the Chapter 353 program, who would oversee the manager and other aspects of this development to bring that on. So it's yet to be determined yet, but somebody, whether it's a person or an entity, will be having that full-time focus on managing the space and programming these spaces.
Sounds like it's not going to be someone or some department within, correct? It's going to be outsourced. Is that fair?
That's still yet to be, I can't really say for sure, but that's what we're looking to, right? Because if they're going to be, my fear is we tag this onto somebody, somebody else that has other functions, and then they're not, their focus is not there, right? This is a full-time job to do this, but it's in partnership with a lot of stakeholders throughout this community for these use of
what
this
I was
space.
trying to get at is the Parks Department has we've got a lot of programming at the amphitheater, and if we're trying to work kind of symbiotically in conjunction with another, having some built-in that coordination rather than.
Yeah, we don't want to step on each other's toes, right?
Thanks.
Yeah,
We don't want it all in-house because it's not what cities do best. So he's talking. We want experts involved, and then Mr. structure, and make sure that because we all have to work together, like you're saying, not just CID. And even though the downtown and the CID seem but they have different. What did you want to add on, sir?
The only thing I was going to add on was I do believe that the programming for underneath the canopy area that would be could be considered similar programming that is at the amphitheater. This is a smaller scale than the amphitheater, and any sort of concert or event like that is really going to only be a small portion of the programming for this area. This space is really geared more towards how do you have that constant flow of activity, probably a lot of smaller things in a lot of different areas. So a long-winded way of saying that I think there are two different areas of two different types of programming that will be going.
Well, we've talked about in the past the fact that we do want pretty tough this time of year, but if we did have a farmer's market, you could go indoors and do some programming. So they're really talking about that much activity. And they've really thought through these spaces on that in front of City Hall and the pedestrian, how to facilitate that programming. Again, we could have all made it all programming and designed it all around programming, but we still wanted that quaint, intimate feel, which is a little bit more not as active. So we really tried to thread the needle on how we designed it to enable both. Fair to say? It all lines up with, all of this lines up with our strat plan, trying to enrich the lives, quality of life for all of our citizens. We know that earlier, but you know, this is our way of downtown, our businesses. It's gonna be a activity to our downtown, a lot of day trips, maybe we even bring revenues to the businesses down here. So it's going to support them, but it's also going to be a huge source of pride for us. Why we've been so diligent and taken as much time as we possibly can. I'm excited about it. We're pretty pumped, and all right, you want to open it up for like a little bit of a round robin before we go, sir? Got any thoughts? You want to hear from us, Mr. Bibbins? Got any thoughts on anything you'd like to hear from us? We kind of gave that report, but we're up here every week giving reports.
Opportunity to see some of this before, and I'm comfortable with it. Competition, but makes us better and makes downtown better and makes us all better. And as you and I have talked before, our community, just as excited to hang out downtown as I am in the park. 35 years has brought, and Mayor, I'm especially looking forward to the shade. I really am. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know that some things that we'll be need thinking about. I'm sure Mr. Snook and his staff have been thinking behind the scenes, but we have got to get ready for the World Cup. And this downtown needs to be ready for the World Cup, and Legacy Park and that ready for the World Cup. So that is not that far away. If you saw that timeline, we're going to be finishing up just in time for the World Cup. Is that correct, Mr. Dunning? And Mr. Elam? Yep. And so you might want to, we got to be planning, like you're talking about, how we're going to bring people here each day, because that's going to be the craziest 30 to 40 days. Activity with a number of people. And I know that the larger regional organizations are going to try to coordinate with us, but we're going to have to do our own marketing of Lease Summit, offer, and bring people down. So we need to start working on that. You know, we need you all to start this off and then figure out the next steps. We do have a DMO, a destination market organization that we're working on. Help with this as well, and we've got a whole board that's been appointed at this point. But these are pretty big, and we've got some experts in the room that know about this kind of stuff, right? We need to be leaning on each other. Start getting a game plan, making sure that people know about Lease Summit when they hit town. So, good. Anybody else have any closing comments? Yes, Councilmember Pryor. Or Councilmember Felke, you got the microphone. You want to go first?
I was just going to make a request. We went through the parks packet today. I didn't see that the slides. If we could make sure just they're incorporated to our packet, because I don't see them public sake and for our later review. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a request, but you know when you're at Legacy and you're playing, like your kids are playing baseball and softball, you guys have those fountains in the middle, like the drinking fountains, but there's nowhere to like refill the water bottle. If you could just put a couple of those little like spigot things where you can put your water bottle underneath it and fill it up, that'd be great. So, my only request, so thank you.
Are you okay if the water comes from the pond?
No, I prefer it I prefer filtered cold water, but I'm not going to be too picky. I would take faucet water too. So.
Somebody else? I thought somebody else was reaching for that microphone. No? Over here? Oh, you're quiet. Did I wear you out in Jeff City today? Having to sit there and listen to all that? Different than the schools? A bit different? All right. We really appreciate this time with you. Again, looking forward to collaborating some more, but we've got some big stuff ahead. Everything from World Cup to the field house, town area. Got a lot more. I mean, people want to come to Lee Summit, so let's just keep working together. Visit, live, and more. Appreciate this. We'll take a break and then back up on the dais so we can pass some ordinances. Thank you all again for coming. We'll come back in about
Thank you, guys.
12, 13. So what time is it? Yeah, come back at around 7:25.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys, get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. These come up too. Perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well then we found a support person and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
When the person called on the phone, she said that there was a dinosaur walking down her road. Of course, we had to go out and check that out. We get out there, and it was a big African tortoise, probably 60 pounds, walking down the road. When they walk, they really stand up tall, so I could see why she thought it was a dinosaur. I'm Rodney Wagner. I'm the manager of Lease Animal Control. So as you can see, we get all sorts of animals here. You got some guinea pigs off to the side. All the windows up here are animals that are adoptable right now. Every one of these dogs is ready to go and ready for adoption. And the same thing with our cats over here. A lot of cool cats in here now, so this is our 3-acre lot we have out back. This is where we do all the walking of dogs, exercise. We also have a side yard off to the side over there, so we can let them run loose. They can run together, and then we have what's called play groups. Kind of like having a bunch of kids. Here's our vet room. We have a vet that comes out twice a week. This is our Sally Port where we bring the animals into. This is one of our animal control trucks, and we can hold up to 6 animals. We have a lift on the other side to put big animals in. We actually have temperature gauges in here and in the truck to tell us how hot it is. Once it gets to a certain temperature, we bring all the animals back here immediately. So this actually has traps in it, but we do a lot of wildlife trapping. I mean, a lot. So bats, potbelly pigs, horses, cows, emus, a lot of reptiles. We had a citizen one time that had over 200 reptiles in his basement. Caimans and alligators in here that are 4 or 5 feet long, you can't keep those. And people do, and they're surprised when they can't keep them. I'm like, really? You're surprised you can't have an alligator in your house? Our main goal here is public safety and also the safety of the animals. And we have very dedicated people back there, and they definitely stay here for the love of the animals, which also includes getting them adopted out. We'll have about 4,000 impounded animals a year. Probably about close to 2,000 are dogs and cats. The cats and dogs, when they get impounded here, they go on a 5-day hold. And then after the 5 days, if the owner doesn't show up, then we can put them up for adoption. To adopt an animal here is actually really simple. You just come in, look for whatever animal you're looking for, find the right pick. You have you go to the adoption room up there and see if you get along with them. You spend as much time as you want to in there. From that point on, it's just a matter of making sure they're spay or neutered and all their vaccinations up to par and they're good to go. We have a very high adoption rate because we try everything in our power to get animals adopted out. We have Heart of America Humane Society that we do a lot of adoptions through. And then we also have other groups. We have some people that literally will just look all over the country for somewhere for a dog to go. And we sent dogs up into South Dakota, North Dakota, Washington State. So it's actually, it's a huge united effort to get all these animals home.
Tarzan's got lots of energy. Hazel's got a weird meow. Belle, she wants nothing to do with the other cats. She'll kind of get her grumpy face going.
And the good thing about the people here is that they get all their friends to get animals too. All of us have probably the limit of all the animals that we can have at home. You know, they are huge animal lovers. If it was up to the people here, we'd have 15 cats running around in here. We had a citizen one time out there and he was bathing his 2 9-foot-long boa constrictors in the front yard. Apparently I was garnering some attention, and so we went out there and had to have a talk with him about that. Why do I do this job? Oh, dude, I love this job. I grew up on a farm, and taking care of that many animals, you can't help but like animals. This is just like fancy farming. You know, you're just bringing animals in here, taking care of them, and find them homes, and yeah, absolutely animal lover.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Well, so for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station. And the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better. And that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we have doors facilitated as many.
Okay, we're going to bring the meeting back to order.
We're sleeping at night.
We have made it to proposed ordinances forwarded from committee. Councilmember Edson, would you please start us off with bill number 24-006?
Thank you, Mayor. I just sat here for 10 minutes and didn't get my vote cast up, so I'm working on that. But I'll read really slowly while it's coming up. Bill number 24-006. An ordinance approving the award of RFP 2024-041 to A1 Sewer and Septic Service, Inc. for stormwater infrastructure CCTV inspection for a 1-year term with 4 possible 1-year renewal options, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-006 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 8-0. Councilmember Edson, would you please?
Yeah, my strategy worked. I move for adoption of bill number 24-006, an ordinance approving the award of RFP 2024-041 to A1 Sewer and Septic Service, Inc. for stormwater infrastructure CCTV inspection for a 1-year term with 4 possible 1-year renewal options, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt bill number 24-006 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Pryor. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's unanimous. It's adopted. Thank you. Councilmember DeMoro, would you please read bill number 24-007?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading bill number 24-007, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Walter P. Moore and Associates, Inc. in an amount of $558,875 for professional engineering services for Ward Road improvements from O'Brien Road to Chipman Road, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, bill number 24-007 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for staff. On this one, what I understand we're doing is we're authorizing what's called a sole source agreement. And for me, this was, I guess I hadn't seen it, and maybe I haven't read enough of the packets before. But just, and I think the understanding is the contractor we're working with here, or the engineering services company, has already provided services adjacent to this project, and so we're, rather than going through a process of rebidding or anything, up the street, if you will, to do the next door project.
Yes, Michael Park, Director of Public Works. What you're asking is about an RFQ. It's a design consultant process, so there's no bid involved for their services. Those are all negotiated. We did do a sole source to extend their services. They're currently working on phase one, which is O'Brien to the south. We believe they bring a little additional knowledge and experience on the project where the projects overlap, in particular at O'Brien. And to continue, they've been doing great work with us. It's a fairly small job, and to just sole source with them makes a lot of sense rather than go through the process of another solicitation of private firms to come in and show us their professional services and their teams on a project like this. We believe that we can probably get the best negotiated price working with them and save time and work and eliminate the conflict of having two different firms essentially work on the same project.
Just, you may not have a response on this, but how often, I just haven't seen it before, so I was just kind of curious how often we've done kind of sole source agreements where you go through that.
It doesn't happen a lot. It really needs to make sense with the right project. Usually it's those are smaller scale and projects that overlap to some degree of the same type of scope like this, where they're doing now Ward Road from O'Brien North as opposed to O'Brien South that they're already under contract working on.
This is something you would have anticipated earlier on, like, hey, let's start it down south, and we know this other project's going to be going next door, if you will.
Yeah, we anticipate it for projects like this, but we want to give time and experience working with the consultant to make sure that they're performing on the first phase before awarding the second phase.
Good spot to end our conversation on. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves forward to second reading unanimously. Councilmember DeMoro, would you please?
Yes, sir. I move for adoption, Bill number 24-007, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and Walter P. Moore and Associates, Inc., in the amount of $558,875 for professional engineering services for Ward Road improvements from O'Brien Road to Chipman Road, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-007 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Pryor. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Shields, would you please read Bill number 24-008?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading of Bill number 24-008, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Federal Highway Administration and Missouri State Historic Preservation Office related to the mitigation of adverse effects of public improvement project designated as Federal Project Number STBG-3001, M291 North Interchange with US 50 within the city limits of Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-008 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, a question for staff here. So in this case, we're determined that the Highway Patrol building has perhaps, because of its age, some historical value, and we're being required by federal law to do some record keeping, if you will, demonstrate, take pictures and various things to document. That's the word I was looking for, documenting the existence. That, kind of like what we did with the Colburn Road project with the
Exactly
pillars.
the same thing.
Okay.
Same process. Yes, you're right. Colburn Road's a great reference where we went through the State Historic Preservation Office on a determined outcome for the pillars that were the fence line. Same thing has happened. It was determined by State Historic Preservation Office SHPO that the old Highway Patrol Troop A building was deemed historic. And so this agreement really defines the mitigation procedure, which is just that, documenting and recording what that building looked like of its time. And then we're able to move on after that documentation is completed with its demolition and removal.
So speaking of demolition, when in the committee hearing, a council member asked if there was, what if something comes up? Is there anything that's going to stop the process or the progress of that demolition? And the answer that was given was no. But I was looking at the agreement, which actually incorporates certain tribes that may have a interest in the property, and it was a provision about remains, human remains. So I'm just curious here, because it did say we could actually be required to stop the process or project. Do we have any idea whether, I mean, I assume that their interest is something that's standard and required for these kind of contracts, meaning the neighboring Native American tribes, for lack of a better description.
There is.
Any sense that there's anything like that?
We have no sense that there are any burials in the site, but that is always a risk with any project. I mean, you start excavation and you find burial, everything does come to a stop. It does on any project.
So that's not just because this is a historical project, but
No.
they were there. Those tribes were notified based on law requiring that. Other projects we might not have to notify those neighboring tribes.
Right, because we have federal funds involved.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Park. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. As moved to second reading, Councilmember Shields, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor, and I move for adoption of Bill Number 24-008, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Federal Highway Administration and the Missouri State Historic Preservation Office related to the mitigation of adverse effects of public improvement project designated as Federal Project Number STBG-3001 M291 North Interchange with US 50 within the city limits of Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same.
Very good. Thank you. I have a motion to adopt Bill Number 24-008 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read Bill Number 24-009?
Mayor, I move for second reading Bill Number 24-009, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement for transit services and management of OATS contract and vehicles by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority and commitment to Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 formula funds to the KCATA for transit service and capital expenses and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading Bill Number 24-009 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Lovell, or Councilmember Felker?
I'll turn it over to Councilmember Lovell if he wants to.
No, he's good.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of questions on this. In particular, there was, in the committee, there was a comment, I believe the presenter stated that there were going to be, sorry, this is about the Lee Summit Express, if you will, the ride down to Kansas City and back, and which I rode for several years actually, so I'm familiar with it. And there was a statement that it was going to be kept as it is, which was 2 trips down and 1 reverse. But I think the contract reads 3, and I just wanted clarity that the expectation is it's going to be 3 down, 1 back. Is that what's in place now, and is that what's going to continue, or?
So the contract will provide for 3 and the return trip. However, what's currently operating is 2 with the return trip based on current demands. And so it allows us to expand that service up to the maximum contract allowed. But if those demands don't materialize, they'll continue to operate under what they are. I mean, during portions of the worst times, you don't have to look too many years back, just a couple, and you find that we were just running 1 bus or no buses because there was not enough demand to support it.
Okay. I appreciate the clarity. Then in terms of paying for this, I was trying to go through the packet to make sure I understood completely. And I'm just going to kind of spew out a few things, and you can tell me if I'm understanding correctly. Out of pocket from the city right now, it's like $47,000, $46,910 is the number. But the total cost actually anticipated for this kind of service is $650 plus, $650,000 overall. But the source of those funds, this is where I'm just trying to understand better, because it really wasn't talked about in committee about, like, $500,000 of this is coming from CARES Act funds, right, I think. And then another source is from state funds, which I did, forgive me if I should have seen it in the packet, but I didn't understand exactly what those funds were from.
All of, well, aside from the CARES funds, the remaining funds are coming through the FTA, Federal Transit Administration. A portion of those come through the state. Another portion come direct to the city by formula. Without CARES funding, we would be using what are called Section 5307. They're a federal funding grant program by formula. They come straight to us. We also match in if there's a little bit available funds through the state. And then we have our local contribution. Because there's a different split. So you have, for capital expenditures, you do an 80% federal, 20% local. For operating expenses, it's a 50-50. We let the KCATA manage as our administrator of transit funds, so we kind of redirect our federal monies to them, and they appropriate them the best they can to those two different sources, whether operating or capital. And our local contribution is usually right around that 35 to 40% of the total cost of transit operations. Now we throw in the confusing thing, which is CARES Act. So CARES by formula went to FTA. FTA then did a disbursement to local communities, small urbanized areas like Lee Summit. We had a fairly large sum of CARES Act funding that came in. CARES Act can't be matched with any of the other federal funding grants or with any of our local money. So when we choose to use CARES money, it's 100% CARES until it completely runs out, until we've used the last dollar. We believe that we have roughly a year, a little more than a year left of the CARES fund. It's been funding our transit program for the last couple years. We've tried to structure the agreement in anticipation of what the total cost is, so we're aware of that. We can put that into our capital improvement plan that then you approve in the annual budget, so that we have secured an amount of local funds, which does amount to $500,000 plus for our cost of transit in the event that we do run out of CARES money, or if for some reason that money's rescinded. You never know what the feds do. But for now, the accounting looks a little off, right? It's like $40,000, $50,000 because we're paying for management fees and other smaller items as opposed to the service or the capital to support the service itself. Right now, all that operating cost and the capital costs being funded by CARES.
And the CARES Act monies are, again, not monies we control necessarily.
Those particular CARES dollars were restricted in use for transit operations, and they were programmed by a formula to the city. We didn't get to determine how much they weren't competitive, and we can't move them around anywhere else. We had to respond to that money years ago when it was sent to us with a statement of obligation. Where are we going to spend it? We determined we were going to spend a very small portion on replacing a fleet of vans and buses that are operated by OATS. Still have not been able to procure those yet, struggling through vehicle procurement. And then the remainder was going to be put towards our operation and maintenance of the fleet and the services as they existed.
It's anticipated, like you said, we've also budgeted, and I think like you said, the source is the sales tax.
Yeah, the normal source of our local match is a transportation sales tax.
That's what would have funded this previously.
It did fund it previously before CARES, and it will fund, assuming council approves the capital improvement plan and the annual budget associated with those years. That will be the source of our continuing local match.
And that's, I think, important for citizens to understand. Like, this is a service we are providing to those who make the commute downtown and back. Have that kind of convenience, I think, is citizens understand, and that's part of what they're paying for when they swipe their card or however they pay for something.
I know we're not at the next agenda item, but with regard to the OATS transit, it's the same funding situation. We use the same Section 5307 funds when we don't have CARES money, and it's the same or similar pro rata share that we contribute. And the total for both those services, the express service and the demand service, is roughly, $500,000–600,000 a year of local costs, and that's about 35 to 40% of the total cost of service.
Okay. Mayor, unless you want me to ask questions about OATS, which is next, I will hold those for that portion, but I know I'll be asking.
Good. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All votes granted. Please record the vote. Unanimous. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read for adoption?
I move for adoption Bill number 24-0009. Actually, that added an extra zero. I move for adoption, Bill number 24-009, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement for transit services and management of OATS contract and vehicles by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority and commitment of Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 formula funds to the KCATA for transit service and capital expenses and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-009 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Pryor, would you please read Bill number 24-010?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to advance to a second reading, Bill number 24-010, an ordinance authorizing the approval of Amendment 1 to the Transportation Service Agreement with OATS by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and OATS, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-010 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Shields thinks I should keep all these questions in my heart, but I just can't keep them inside. So we've had a little fun with this. Mr. Park, if I could ask you more questions. Thank you for indulging me tonight. Just for clarity, who can use OATS?
Anybody.
Okay.
Anybody except a student of one of our fine K through 12. It is not a substitute, and it would be in conflict with a substitute for school district bus transportation.
Okay. Good. All right. Good to know. Historically, that wasn't the case. It's expanded from what it used to be.
Yeah, I think I count once over my 18 years we've had somebody complain that they couldn't use OATS to transport their child to a school.
And this is, we're increasing, part of this is an increase of the cost for that fare from $1.50 to $3.
Yes. Yeah, we're trying to offset really what that local cost is for continued cost increases through inflation. I mean, they've had labor cost increase as well as just overall fleet maintenance and capital increases. So we're trying to kind of share a little bit of that expense and changing the ridership fare to $3. $3 is pretty consistent with other fare costs where fares are charged.
And just kind of understanding the way they're charged, the way they charge is, I was reading through it. They charge $35 an hour for operating however, whenever they're in operation, they charge that fee. At least that's what it used to be, and now it's going up to $68 an hour. When they are actually operating, they run a clock. I'm trying to understand how this works in terms of that's how the fee is charged from OATS standpoint. Rider pays their $3 fee. Then they ask, then it comes back and then we, from kind of the source of funds we've been talking about, are then required to pay some certain cost.
Yes, what you see in the agreement is really a maximum cost. So if their calls for service are not maximizing the use of all the vehicles in operation for all the hours that the contract allows them to operate, that's the total cost we could expect. If they're less than that, then our cost is going to be less. They base that on a per hour, so they come down to that $60 per hour. That's all their expenses included for their drivers and for their maintenance and fuel and everything as they estimate it. And that's just to get us to a kind of a total not to exceed maximum contract price, knowing that we may see a decline in ridership. They don't need to operate all 6 vehicles, every day of the week for all the hours that are available. And for each hour a vehicle's not in operation, well, they're not charging for that. Yep.
And that was, so like, again, this, in the packet, you see like this max price of almost $900,000, but that's if you were literally running all 6 vehicles from 7 to 5:30, I think, nonstop.
Right, and that's the total cost. Again, that would be the total cost. We only have a share of that expense. And until CARES completely exhausts all of its money, CARES is paying for that. Okay. Otherwise, they invoice KCATA, who's been our designated administrator of funds, and then KCATA pays the invoice and we pay KCATA. It's kind of this, we route the money through, so we never actually touch that Section 5307 funding. It puts all the reporting requirements on KCATA as our administrator.
What kind of review do we do of their reporting? Like what kind of due diligence? Part of what, I mean, if I'm a citizen thinking of what you just said, I'm like, well, how do we know we're we've got a middleman in there, and how are we making sure that we're not being swindled out of something?
Well, to be honest, we don't review KCATA's administration of the federal funds and the payments. I'm not too familiar with that business and all the reporting requirements, and we are able to opt out a lot of those federal reporting requirements because they are our designated. That's what they do. I mean, they run a transit agency. We do monitor ridership. We get monthly ridership. We can see how much use is being placed on both OATS and Express and all these other services that are provided so that we can respond. We also take complaints and service calls, as does KCATA, and we can respond to that too. If KCATA is not paying their bill, we hear from OATS, if they're not timely. They are very timely in what they do. So in that way, we kind of oversee it, but we're not checking to make sure that they're filing the proper paperwork. It is upon them to do that proper paperwork filing.
But they come back, well, I'm just thinking, because as we've said today, we're kind of, with both of these programs, we're using free money right now. So, but at some point it's going to come off that, and next year maybe even, I don't know how soon, but it's, so then my questions start turning is, are we accounting for it in a way that we're sure that what goes in and what comes out is reflecting actual use? And
yeah, we do. We get the invoices from KCATA, and we see what those invoices are paying for.
Okay.
That definitely helps. Where it gets a little gray is because to our advantage, they're not just purely going with the 50-50 operating share. They're trying to leverage our dollars into some of their capital expenses because they're managing also, there's only two urbanized areas. There's Kansas City and there's Lee Summit. Everybody else, Blue Springs, Independence, they're all in Kansas City. So they're managing really Kansas City, and they're taking Kansas City dollars with our dollars to try to maximize the federal aid that comes into the region. So we don't always get to see what portion of our money goes towards operation, what portion of our money goes towards replacing fleet. But to our advantage, it could just all go 50-50, but they're spreading it a little bit further to replace buses elsewhere, if that makes some sense.
Explain that to me, and maybe I misunderstood. We're on an island versus the rest of the metro. Help me understand, what do you, explain that again.
So the way the federal government and Federal Transit Agency appropriates funds is based on urbanized areas. So those are determined on census data. So there's enough separation between our census tracts, kind of put us on an island for Lee Summit, from the rest of the metropolitan area. There's enough density, there's enough connection for the rest of it we got that space between really kind of Lakewood and Lee Summit Road and Kansas City, that they say we're kind of a small urbanized area separate. That really grants us direct formula funding from the feds for programs like transit. At some point, I'm sure we'll grow into that space, or they'll grow into that space, and then Lee Summit urbanized area will go away, and it'll just be the Kansas City urbanized area.
So then we operate under KCATA?
Then we would operate under KCATA. Our money essentially would flow to them, and they would provide services to Lee Summit in the same way.
It sounds kind of like that's what we're doing now, to an extent.
To an extent, we are. Yeah, they're just trying to maximize the local dollars to the federal aid.
Seems like we would, part of this questioning is this uncovering something where I'm like, well, how do we know? How do we know? So, I don't not trust your processes, but it seems like there's something there, and maybe I don't know enough to know whether I'm even asking the right questions, but just knowing, from point A to point B, and there seems to be something in between where is it directly, is the amount that comes out of our pocket, whether it's from the free money pocket or our future, what we'll have to allocate in the future, is it connecting directly to that ridership use from city riders, if you will?
We are probably, I would guess, paying less of a local share for the services we get because KCATA wants to maximize the federal dollars that are being, by formula, programmed to Lee Summit. See, we always have a little bit of federal dollars left over. We don't have enough services to maximize the federal dollars. So they try to use some of our local dollars and use it for capital expenses on the rest of the system to maximize the federal dollars that are coming into our area. If we don't use it, we direct it back to the Kansas City area. so it doesn't get lost in the region. But it is a little messy. I'm trying to describe how the sausage is made. But know that our staff is looking at the invoices as they come in. We're seeing reports of ridership. We're monitoring it. And we're making sure that we get more than our fair share, if you will, for the amount of service provided.
Okay. So the only other question I have is the agreement that the prior agreement was written very favorable to the city. The way I read it was, it can be renewed at the city's discretion, and maybe I'm missing something completely. But, so we are now, if this wasn't approved, and I just always think about this, would OATS continue to do this kind of arrangement with us? Because we're agreeing to a couple of things. One was we agreed to increasing the cost for our citizens to use it, as well as cutting out a few days. You know, they talked about adding some holidays, which I thought, I understand Christmas being off, a day off, but Christmas Eve seems to be a day I would love to have those who might need this kind of cost-efficient transportation to get to and from somewhere. What a good day to go see family and other, anyway. Anyway, I just think the prior contract just was in the favor of the city. Now we're actually giving more, and are we getting more back in return? This is just me thinking about contract negotiation, and maybe there's something else I don't understand.
Well, I think we're at the point where, yeah, it's been in the city's favor where we've renewed this contract. There has been a reciprocal consent that's happened, but if it's not renewed, the services stop. We would have to go out to market and try to find another company to try to provide similar services or better at a cost that may be extraordinarily higher than what we've got. It had been years since we've seen really any measurable adjustment in their rates. And that was their concern. It's why they said, hey, we can't continue to provide service at the cost we've been providing the city. And that's why you're seeing these increases. And it was either we come forward with this plan. There's also a few other plans, whether it be increasing fares substantially higher to try to offset the local costs, or to come to the city council and say, are you willing to raise rates, 70, 80% to continue this service, or cease service altogether?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Park. Mr. Mayor, I don't think I have any further questions at this point.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Passes 7-1. Thank you. Who's reading this one? Councilmember Pryor, would you please read for adoption?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for adoption Bill number 24-010, an ordinance authorizing the approval of Amendment 1 to the Transportation Service Agreement with OATS by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and OATS, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-010 by Councilmember Pryor, seconded by Councilmember DeMoro. Discussion? Cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. Adopted 7-1. Thank you. Councilmember Felker, would you please read Bill number 24-011?
Certainly, Mayor. I move to advance to second reading Bill number 24-011, an ordinance approving change order number 2 to the agreement with Infrastructure Solutions LLC for the McClendon Ditch Sewer Improvements Project, project number 425, between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Infrastructure Solutions LLC for an increase of $127,238.20 for a revised agreement price of $6,478,088.20, and to increase the project timeline by 85 calendar days and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading. Bill number 24-011 by Councilmember Felker, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It passes 8-0. Councilmember Felker, would you please?
Mayor, I'd like to move for adoption of Bill number 24-011, an ordinance approving change order number 2 to the agreement with Infrastructure Solutions LLC for the McClendon Ditch Sewer Improvements Project, project number 425, between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and Infrastructure Solutions LLC for an increase of $127,238.20 for a revised agreement price of $6,478,088.20, and to increase the project timeline by 85 calendar days, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-011 by Councilmember Felker, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, would you please read Bill number 24-012?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading Bill number 24-012, an ordinance approving change order number 3 to the agreement with Sands Construction LLC for the Sidewalk Gap Program fiscal year 23 project. Project number 718 for an increase of $242,219.97 for a revised agreement amount of $2,292,211.20 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading Bill number 24-012 by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Yes. Councilmember Felker?
Thank you, Mayor. One more kind of question and a comment for Mr. Park, if you don't mind. I told him before we started I'd have some for him tonight. So primary question here is we're paying for like overruns here, like costs we didn't anticipate that in order to complete the projects we earlier approved exceeded the amount that we anticipated by, again, a decent amount.
Correct.
Okay, and there'd been some other changes previously that were lower amounts. They were administratively approved below whatever threshold, like 75 or 75 or 100,000 we do for our procurement policy. I did want to actually comment and say thank you to your staff. I think Aaron Relovo.
Ms.
Okay.
Relovo, yes.
I probably said it wrong. Yeah, Aaron gave a presentation about the learning process in the Sidewalk Gap program, and I would just say for those who weren't on the committee to watch it, if those who weren't could watch it, because it was informative in terms of when you're doing a project like this, and to the extent we're trying to accomplish it in the future, because we've got a lot more to do, that there may be an underestimation of costs based on what's been learned. I don't know if you might just comment briefly on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was one of the lessons learned. We thought we were getting to some of the easy fixes when it came to sidewalk gaps on this first phase of implementation. Well, some of those weren't as easy. You know, you get into a sidewalk installation where you have to be ADA compliant. You start to get into driveways and doing the right thing and the reasonable thing and working with property owners rather than have abrupt driveway grades is to replace more of the driveway. To some extent, some driveways had to go all the way back to the garage. It was those unexpected costs that you're seeing reflected in these overruns. Sometimes we were getting into properties where they really wanted a specific type of sod and trying to work with them to get the project done where we needed like a temporary construction easement. We were trying to work with them as best we could. Those are unexpected costs. Knowing that kind of lesson learned and knowing also that we're getting into more challenging areas of sidewalk gap where you're going to have to start engineering walls, more than just a integral curb on the back of the sidewalk to match grade. You're getting into more driveway replacements. We're going to have to do a little more field work and due diligence on the engineering side before we go to construction. There we ought to be able to identify a lot more of these challenges up front when we bid the project. And so they'd be reflected in the bid, hopefully at a better bid price than at a change order price. But no, actually the whole project turned out really well. There's not a piece of that project that was omitted that we went into with intention of building. You know, in the end, we found very cooperative property owners, very understanding. We had a really good contractor. Sands did an outstanding job working with people, communicating. Ms. Relovo, our John Haley, our inspector and construction project managers, they all worked really well together, and it was really an act of customer service and working with individual property owners to get past whatever concerns they had that could have otherwise eliminated beneficial sidewalk for the public's use.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I think it underscores this kind of a project underscores, I think, how important it is to have different things in our community that make a daily difference in people's lives. And I mean, I don't think we can underestimate how impacting they can be. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lovell?
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Park, sorry. I just, sitting on this committee and the meeting we had, I had brought up the question, and just maybe kind of along the lines of some of the questioning here, was that how Public Works tracks, with our bidding, right? And Mr. Binger was there too, and maybe you could just reiterate for council and the public, but what was amazing was the percent accuracy that you guys are with your bidding and some of the overruns, because we do see these a lot, right? And as a citizen, you might just say, gosh, and how accurate we are in Public Works, and that you do measure it on a yearly basis and are always doing things to work and refine that we don't get the overruns.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to recall what Mr. Binger had said. It's impressive. While you see all these change orders that come through and you say, geez, that sounds like a lot, right? And then you recall, we did over $50 million worth of work. And our change orders, which is a testament to the prepared plans and construction, I believe he said we're under 1%.
Yes.
Under 1%. We have a goal of being under 5%. And year in and year out, we're seeing we're right around 1%, under 1% of total change orders. So kudos to all of our staff and those that we select as engineering consultants in preparing quality plans that are bid well to try to help mitigate and eliminate some of those surprises during construction that can be very expensive in change orders. So I know, you see a $200,000+ change order, but in the context of all the capital work that's going on an annual basis, when you're building over $50 million, $200,000 of a change order is really, really minor. And I do think they're doing a very good job of that. Under 1% in change orders for the year last year.
I thought it was really impressive. Thanks. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves to second reading unanimously. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, would you please?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I now move for adoption of Bill number 24-012, an ordinance approving change order number 3 to the agreement with Sands Construction LLC for the Sidewalk Gap Program Fiscal Year 23 project, project number 718, for an increase of $242,219.97 for a revised agreement amount of $2,292,211.20, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-012 by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It's unanimous. It's adopted. Thank you. Councilmember Edson, would you please read Bill number 24-013?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for a second reading of Bill number 24-013, an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Scodeller Construction, Inc. for the Runway 11-29 Taxiway Bravo and Taxiway Charlie Reseal Joint Seal and Remarking Project, an increase of $146,127.36 for a revised contract price of $760,625.81, and authorizing the same manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-013 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Councilmember Shields. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves to second reading unanimously. Councilmember Edson, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for adoption of Bill number 24-013, an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Scodeller Construction, Inc. for the Runway 11-29 Taxiway Bravo and Taxiway Charlie Reseal Joint Seal and Remarking Project, an increase of $146,127.36 for a revised contract price of $760,625.81, and authorizing the same manager to execute the same.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-013 by Councilmember Edson, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember DeMoro, would you please read Bill number 24-014?
I move to advance the second reading, Bill number 24-014, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, as a law enforcement partner for the Eastern Jackson County Co-Responder Program and the Mid-America Regional Council to work collaboratively to execute the requirements of the federal award project entitled Eastern Jackson County Co-Responder Program 3.0 Model for Growth.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading, Bill number 24-014 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It moves to second reading, 8-0. Councilmember DeMoro, would you please?
I move for adoption, Bill number 24-014, an ordinance authorizing the execution of Memorandum of Understanding by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, as a law enforcement partner for the Eastern Jackson County Co-Responder Program and the Mid-America Regional Council to work collaboratively to execute the requirements of a federal award project entitled Eastern Jackson County Co-Responder Program 3.0 Model for Growth.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-014 by Councilmember DeMoro, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. The bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Shields, would you please read Bill number 24-015?
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading of Bill number 24-015, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the City of Lee Summit Municipal Code, providing for rules relating to municipal court personnel management, defining terms, roles, responsibilities, and creating within Chapter 11 of the Lee Summit Municipal Code 2 new sections, Section 11-5 definitions and Section 11-6 municipal court personnel management for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. We have a motion to move to second reading Bill number 24-015 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. It does move forward to second reading, 8-0. Councilmember Shields, would you please?
Thank you, Mayor. I now move for adoption of Bill number 24-015, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the City of Lee Summit Municipal Code, providing for rules relating to municipal court personnel management, defining terms, roles, and responsibilities, and creating within Chapter 11 of the Lee Summit Municipal Code 2 new sections, Section 11-5 definitions and Section 11-6 municipal court personnel management for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt Bill number 24-015 by Councilmember Shields, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Please cast your vote. All votes are in. Please record the vote. That bill is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Moves us to proposed ordinances first reading. Councilmember Lovell, would you please read Bill number 24-016?
What am I doing with this?
You're moving it to second reading.
I move to second reading Bill number 24-016, an ordinance accepting final plat entitled Tailor-Made Landing, Lots 1 through 2, and Tract A as a subdivision to the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
We have a motion to move to second reading Bill number 24-016 by Councilmember Lovell, seconded by Councilmember Edson. Discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. Please record the vote. It does move to second reading, 8-0. Thank you all. And we go to committee reports. Committee reports. Yes, Councilmember Felker.
Nothing to report yet, but Rules Committee will meet Thursday, 11:30 by Zoom.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Council comments. I'll start off by talking about Jeff's city visit today. We went, Councilmember Lovell and I went. We did attend a 12 o'clock hearing in the Senate in the smallest committee room they could pack us all into. So it was overflowed. But there were numerous people that spoke in favor of the bill on the floor. There were actually two bills on the floor, one sponsored by Senator Searpoy, one sponsored by Senator Bratton, and they were actually identical bills for the most part. And there were numerous citizens, developers, students, principals, and elected officials there to testify. I was in the third tranche, so I got a couple of minutes to speak, and did a similar to last year, you know, in the testimony that I gave, but just trying to get them to give Missourians a voice in a situation where a landfill is being placed in a sliver of land between Lee Summit, Raymore, and Grandview, in which if they were to put a proposed landfill there, it would actually affect our citizens in each of our communities much, much more than it would Kansas City citizens. And we were looking for a voice. I thought it was very well done today with regard to everyone complimenting each other's testimony and asking for that say in this matter. So it went really well. I think better than last year by far, because not only do we have a lot more time to prepare for it, but we were just coordinated. So there was some excellent testimony. And I thought, you know, that many of the people giving testimony were questioned by the senators on the board, on that committee that is, and I thought everybody did a good job. So I think it's got a good chance of coming out of that committee, and then we just got to get it to the floor for a vote, an actual vote on the floor. And that would be the key. There's still a couple questions with regard to senators in the state that could oppose it, and the more it gets shelved and the more it gets pushed to the end of the session, the more likely it is that it wouldn't pass. But by being this early in the process and having a great sponsor like Senator Sirpoy, our senator, sponsoring it, I think it's as good as we can do. It really is. It's as good as we can do. So, Councilmember Lovell, would you like to comment on that? Yep. All right. Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for going, and thank you to Councilmember Lovell for going too. I just want to say that it greatly affects my district and Councilmember Shields' district and Councilmember Felker's district as well. So I would love if there's any way to, going forward, be a part of this or being a part of even finding out when these things are. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Felker.
I really appreciated Councilmember Lovell's question of Mr. Park and the feedback, especially about trying to gauge how efficient we are in terms of planning for projects and what they actually end up costing. I think that's a great service for taxpayers to know about, to know that we're that attentive and that close. I think it's great. I don't know that. I wonder how many homeowners have a 1% when they do a project in their backyard, or start the project and just like the sidewalk project, realize that whatever you were doing on your deck ends up requiring a lot more time and effort. So I appreciate the feedback, Mr. Park, and your team, and certainly all of staff in that regard. I do feel like that's the kind of thing I really feel like it's helpful for us to emphasize and share with citizens. I don't know how you share that kind of information, but it's, I think a citizen, that citizens we come across sometimes recognize the good that the city does, and sometimes they may take a skeptical view of things, and I think this kind of information is helpful in terms of citizens understanding the sincere and intelligent effort that's put forward to make sure taxpayer dollars are used effectively. So I wonder what more could be done to communicate that. And then I mentioned this in CEDC. I'm looking at Mr. Elam because we talked just a little bit about, not necessarily talked about it, but I mentioned the idea that we were talking about park impact fees, and from time to time we will have fees or taxes or some other cost presented to us as a council
whether it be in committee or the full council. And sometimes we'll be presented as not only with the proposed fee, but also with where we are as a comparator to other jurisdictions. And I know I mentioned this, and I guess kind of mention it for the sake of fellow members of council. What a good, again, piece of information we could have at our fingertips to communicate. How do we compare when it comes to sales tax to our community, local community, neighboring community, excuse me? How do we compare when it comes to the water impact fee or the tap fee, park impact fee? Like, did I make up a fee, Mr. Schaffler? Water impact fee? Do you want one? Here we go. Water tap fee. I probably may, and there's more than I don't even know, but my experience has been, I think, pretty consistent that whenever we have seen those comparisons, we are kind of middle of the pack. Maybe a little up, which I think is okay, but rarely do I find us that we're at the top or the bottom, and I think as a city, that's probably the right spot to be in. So I guess, Mayor, I'm just bringing it up because I think it's a great set of data points. If we had, I don't know, comprehensively, if there was ever an effort to kind of put all that together, I'm sure there's lots of, that would require coordination of a lot of different areas, departments. But again, I like that kind of information because I think it helps us communicate appropriately to our citizens that we're doing a good job, that our staff is doing an even better job. And I think it's a great thing. So just sharing that. And then my last thing is I just want to resurface this topic. Actually, Councilmember Levels, when he brought up the idea of having a further discussion on standards of quality for development, and just when we might have more dialogue on that. I feel like it's something that we mentioned before the end of the year, and obviously the year gets going and going fast, and I'm sure we have plenty of things to discuss and review as council, but I think it's still certainly something I'm interested in having a conversation on. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I know that we do, I love best practices as well, and I know that we do a lot of comparisons. I know the water department does a lot of comparisons, especially on quality, water quality and such, and all the surveys, and then sales tax. I know we can get that information. Some things we can't, I don't think we can monitor daily, monthly, weekly, but we can definitely do periodic checks, to provide that information. And then that last item, we could, is that start the conversation on the quality development?
Probably after April.
That?
She's wanting to postpone it till after April.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm afraid we're gonna find that, I want to take it through CEDC, do the process, but I think we're going to find that we have a pretty high standard when it comes to city code, because I hear about it from developers and builders all the time. They complain compared to our smaller surrounding rural cities that let them do more things than we allow them to do. But it's still good to know, and we want to start at least put it on the schedule, and whether it gets here by April 15th or not, I'm not sure. But we can start. Councilmember Lovell?
Yeah, maybe just to add a little further context to that, because we certainly have great development standards. I guess one of the things we had talked about are, just some other comparator cities that are out there, and some of the things or mechanisms they've used to create the kind of design architecture feel of what they're doing. So I don't know, because it's almost subjective in a lot of ways, but so I was just trying to think of what would be that kind of directive at CEDC, and what do we want to accomplish out of it? Or, is it related to multifamily? Is it related to commercial development? Is it, just, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of talking out loud right now, so that there would be some sort of understanding as to what we were trying to accomplish with that answer. But I think that was kind of the intent, was have developments coming online a better directive to developers to understand what we're looking for and how. play out through that course of development.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. All that's fair as well. Need to start talking about it so we can vet through that. Yeah. Any other council comments? Staff roundtable?
Thank you, Mayor. Recently, there was a news story about some neighboring jurisdictions kind of partnering together to put a focus on expired temp tags within their areas. And I thought it'd be helpful to have Chief Forbes give a brief status report on our efforts and what we see with regard to expired temp tags, just to heighten the awareness that we hear sometimes frequently about, some really expired temp tags and what's being done about that. So if you're okay, Mayor, I thought I'd let Chief Forbes give a brief update.
Yes,
and then I
please.
have a couple follow-up items, too.
Mayor and members of council, Travis Forbes, Chief of Police. I did see the news story as well, and I'd kind of probably summarize it to say it'd be a more shocking news story for Lee Summit to not enforce that ordinance. Our officers last year wrote 1,836 tickets for registration violations. So that could be temporary tags, expired license plates, improper license plates on a vehicle. There's multiple ways you could have your vehicle running around town without having properly registered the car. So frankly, when I got into the academy, one of the ways that they trained me to look for car checks is to check registration. It's like something basically that all of our police officers are engaged in every day. So again, I think that's the bigger issue of if we were to stop doing that. So the other question that tends to arise when I hear this discussed is removing those tags. Right now, I'll be honest, we leave it to officer discretion for a few reasons. One reason is it continues to be a violation. So if somebody continues to run around town, whether they don't have a license plate or an expired license plate, it's a violation. And in fact, many cases we pull over a car and find that they've already been stopped, sometimes 2 or 3 times, and written a citation perhaps 2 or 3 times as well, and sometimes a couple warnings on top of that too. The second reason is a vehicle without a license plate is a vehicle that cannot be traced or tracked. And that's something we have to keep in mind too. So if somebody's committing a crime without a license plate, technologies such as ALPR or even officers viewing the vehicle, it doesn't allow us to track who that vehicle potentially belongs to or who could be driving that vehicle at the time too. So I could see arguments both ways of should we seize even temporary tags, which yes, they can be tracked through automated license plate reader technology. So we don't always seize them. Sometimes we do, particularly if they're stolen, obviously. If they're stolen plates, the officers do take those if they belong to someone's car and somebody stole them. So it's a complicated matter. We're glad to see that the state does have a law coming up. It's not in effect yet that places it in the dealer's hands to collect those taxes. So this issue isn't as severe as it currently is. You still could have people fail to get their license plates renewed and things of that nature. But the temp tag issue, and really I think it's so apparent to the public because they can see when a temporary tag's expired. Frankly, officers are trained to look closely at the registration stickers on a regular license plate. It's just not as apparent to the public when somebody's regular license plate is expired as it is those temp tags that have a huge blatant, 2023 or 2022 or something year on there that really is apparent, and people say that car's way expired. So I understand it's frustrating, and again, 1,836 people last year received citations for this in our city. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Questions? Councilmember Felker?
In the line of what we just talked about, or I talked about at least a few minutes ago, how does that, do you have that kind of data point as to other communities? Meaning, do they publish that data?
No, I don't. no, I don't believe anyone publishes that, their citation data to that degree.
Do we publish it? Is it something we publish outside of internally?
No, we don't. I'm trying to think of, we do publish stop data for the state as part of state law, but no, we don't get into that minute detail. We certainly are not ashamed of it, and we would be awfully happy to publish that kind of data. But
I'm not necessarily advocating for it. I'm just, as we say, 1,800 sounds like a lot. I'm just like, is that a lot? And if other communities were way above or way below relative to their population, then maybe that's an indication of where we're at. And that's kind of what I was asking. But
yeah, I will say that our traffic enforcement, we really drive that on data with crashes, and that's our primary traffic enforcement activity. So our traffic unit is not necessarily taxed with, hey, we would like you to go out today, find as many vehicles with expired temp tags as you can. We would rather them go to high crash zones, conduct enforcement activities there, and hopefully drive crash numbers down. And in fact, this year we have seen our crash numbers go down through very targeted enforcement. However, it's just like the general public. Our officers see these just like everyone else does. And if they're not on a way to a call for service or conducting some other higher priority response for our citizens, they're going to pull these cars over. And as you can see, over 1,800 times they did so and wrote citations. So I'm not going to say it's the highest priority of our traffic division, but it's also something we don't ignore.
glad to hear about those preventive efforts. Thank you, Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Shields.
Do you have any way of tracking when you issue those citations, how often they get corrected? Like how often the person actually goes and gets their vehicle registered properly? Because you say some of these folks get pulled over 2, 3, 4, 5 times for the same issue, but they're not fixing it. And at what point?
We really don't. The court might have some information on that because I think if you, obviously if you get a citation, I'm not an attorney, but I would assume that your attorney would encourage you to get your vehicle registration up to date so you could go to court and, you know, beg the court for a lesser sentence perhaps because you got your, but I'm not sure they track that either. That would be a little difficult for us to track. Multiple citations we might be able to figure out if we were able to find someone who's John Doe received a registration violation ticket. We could probably go back and see, did John Doe get another, you know, to see if there's been repeat violations. I wouldn't be shocked if we had a good handful of folks who received more than one violation. Typically it's not going to be the same day or the same week even, but if we pull someone over who's 3 months later their vehicle's still not registered correctly, they're probably going to get another citation. It's always officer discretion, but we use common sense just like everybody.
There an escalating happens multiple times without being corrected. Does the fee go up, or at some point does the car get impounded? Like, how many chances do people get before?
There's not an auto impound process that we use, and the court would probably have to speak more to if the fine would escalate. Some of those fines are up to the judge, but there's also not a fee schedule increase, I don't believe, for multiple violations of this ordinance. They're automatic, where the judge wouldn't sentence them.
Thank you. Councilmember Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Shields kind of asked my question, but I just was wondering if what the consequence was, or what the citation says whenever they get it. What kind of fees are associated, if you know. I don't know, like you said.
Yeah, I should have come armed with that information. I don't know the exact fine. I know, you know, that's obviously what people are sometimes weighing against is registering the vehicle and the cost of that compared to the fine, and some people make that choice just to go with the fine. But, you know, obviously repeated violations could draw the ire of the court, and they could certainly, at their discretion, raise the fine. I can find that information and certainly distribute it through the office to each of you.
Okay,
what the fee schedule is for that.
I don't necessarily Do you want to see the fee schedule for it? Oh, yep, I guess we would like to
Will
see
do.
that, so
Will
thank
do.
you. Is there any way, I know that it was interesting talking to the prosecutor that one, I guess it's been a couple weeks ago, maybe, I don't remember, but just hearing her perspective on certain tickets, like within the state of Missouri, the state doesn't necessarily have the same like measures to be able to prosecute like other states do. Is there any way we could get a presentation on that, just because it was interesting? Or is there any way we could just hear more about that from her, or no?
I'm not sure what you mean. Like,
Mayor, she may have been referring to Senate Bill 5, and Mr. Head may know a little bit about that too. The state does place restrictions on the level of fines that can be assessed for certain offenses, and I'd be kind of surprised if this wasn't included in some of those restrictions. It's commonly referred to as Senate Bill 5. In some ways it was meant to curtail, or there's many reasons why that was passed, but we do have limitations as a city on the number or the amount of fine that we can process against people.
would you mind maybe sending through the city manager's office interesting, facts regarding these types of things, including the information you're talking about, and let us educate ourselves a little bit with those materials, and then we can discuss how we want to go from there. Yeah, does that sound good? Okay, I do have one question. If you're done, Ms. Councilmember Pryor. Thank you. Are you able to untrain yourself to look for those expiration tags?
It can be awfully difficult. The state changed. They used to have the first letter of the alphabet in your license plate would tell you the month of expiration. I believe they changed that, which made our jobs as police officers much more difficult. I don't know if Captain Lyles, they changed that. I wish they wouldn't have done that. That made it really easy to spot them, but...
Felt like you were out there on the roads again whenever you could spot them like that.
It's kind of hard to, so I'll be doing it when I'm retired, I'm sure, staring at people's license plates.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dunning?
Yeah, couple other quick topics here. So tying back to the landfill update that you provided, Mayor, the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District has a report out on the regional landfill capacity, and that MARC committee, if you will, the Solid Waste Management District, is meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. to review this report, the study that was done. That's publicly out there. I'd be happy, I've got it pulled up, I'd be happy to send that to each of you. It's my understanding that this information has been shared with some state legislators down at Jeff City already, so this information is just coming out. So I'd be happy to get that to each of you for your awareness, so I'll send that out, but I wanted to draw attention to that report. What I'm seeing here is they've run a variety of different scenarios for the region, and the number of years range anywhere from 19 to 37 years of capacity. A lot of factors go into that, but I think this is a little bit different information than some of the information we've been hearing out here. So this is done by an engineering professional here in the region, so that report's there. Just wanted to draw that to your attention. And then lastly, with the weather, the extreme cold that we've had, I thought it'd be helpful to give you a little feel for some of the things that we've been responding to from a building perspective, but also from a people perspective. As you can imagine, our water utilities department has been running hard on frozen lines and water main breaks, and we heard it earlier, just the appreciation for folks. I've seen pictures of our folks out there, dedicated professionals, down in the excavation, standing in water, and it's -10 out, and it's just miserable, right? But they're out there responding to these, keeping our infrastructure going. So we've been running quite a few water main breaks. We do have one that we're working right now at 3rd and Pryor. If you're headed home that direction, you might be detoured, depending on where they're at, and looking at that one, we may have to shut some roads down in order to figure that one out, but we're working those. As you can imagine, a lot of frozen service lines, predominantly on the customer side. If it's on the home side, if you will, of the water meter, that's a customer. If it's at the meter or back towards the main, then those are calls that we respond to and resolve. A lot of broken water lines, and this is, we know that with the extreme cold that we have, we'll be finding a lot more. We anticipate a lot more of these will occur when the thaw starts to occur, because when the line's frozen, it's not leaking, but it busts the pipe, but it's not leaking. When it starts to thaw, that's when you can start realizing a lot of broken water lines. So a lot of great work going on here. We've coordinated, a lot of coordination between our water services department, fire department on these calls. And for the public's awareness, if it's during business hours, 8 to 5, if you have a water issue, feel free to call water utilities at 969-1900. If it's after hours, the proper way to call in a concern is using our non-emergency fire department dispatch, and that number is 816-969-7407. The calls go there, and then they call out our crews from there, because we have on-duty folks. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's kind of on the water side, kind of the building component side. On the people side of things, a lot of great collaboration between our fire department, police department, parks department, with warming centers, Lee Summit Social Services, Ministerial Alliance, other community partners, and Red Cross. We have had a couple folks that have shown up to warming centers that have expressed they need help, and we have been able, through that collaborative effort, find shelters for those folks. A couple of them, 3 that I'm aware of. And then we've recently had a couple structure fires, one yesterday and one today, where American Red Cross has stepped in. And so I spoke about the water guys. I know that our firefighters are out there spraying water, and it gets on their gear, and unless they continue to move, it freezes real quick too. So kudos for all of the folks, not just water and fire and PD, but everybody who's coming together to look after people. And all of us, I know, are doing the same with our family and friends. So that's a quick update on this severe weather we've been having. Be happy to answer any questions regarding any of that. And that's it, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have one small request. Could you have somebody fix that clock back there? Because it's all tired.
It's out of whack, isn't it?
Batteries, yep. So with that, I'm going to close this meeting based on the time off of my computer, which is 8:44. Thank you.